In the nearly 400 years since the town of New Haven was surveyed and plotted, it has been a central location for businesses and commerce in the Northeast. The green and surrounding 8 squares still exist, and so does the need for a thriving economy. Joining us today is Garrett Sheehan, president of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, to talk about the future of business in Connecticut. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments below. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state-local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. All right. Thanks for being here today. So you're the president of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce. For the layperson out there, what exactly is a Chamber of Commerce, and what role do you play in that?
Well, chamber services.
Mm-hmm.
Take on many different roles. As far as the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, as you mentioned, we cover 15 towns, so we're a regional chamber. We cover not only New Haven, but all the way out to Madison, out to Milford, up to Wallingford, Cheshire, all the towns.
How many chambers are there in the state?
Gosh, if I had to guess, I would say maybe 40 or 50 chambers.
Wow.
It might even be more than that.
So they're not on the same scale as you guys.
So you have there's about 8 major regional chambers that cover up most of the state, and then even within those territories, there's local chambers of commerce.
So that within your territory, are there smaller?
Yes,
okay,
there are, and actually, we have a connection where we have an affiliation with the Quinnipiac Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
So that's a local chamber of commerce that serves Wallingford, North Haven. Those are 2 towns that are within our overall footprint, but we have a really great relationship with them where we're close on the ground. But it's different. It's different, the types of things that you're doing at that level.
The focus.
At a regional chamber, what we really try to focus on, first, serving our members, trying to help them grow, take care of their business, do business better, give them opportunities not only to learn, to build their business, but connect them so they can get in leads, more business that comes in the door for them. Then also it's our public policy advocacy efforts. That's on how do we make this a better business environment, a place where we can get things done. It's conducive to business being here. One of the great examples I like to use, and we can talk about it later on too, is Tweed Airport. So that's been an initiative that we've been really focused on for several years. It's a local issue. If we're able to unlock Tweed, we think we'll see a lot more economic benefits for all of our businesses that are here. And we still get on the major business issues of the day, but that's also something that CBIA is very focused on. State, essentially a state chamber. We're engaged in that area too, but we try to find those things that would really make a difference for our region.
Cover the things that they're not necessarily as focused on.
Yeah, something that's going to change the way we do business here in Greater New Haven. And then economic development. That's actually my background. Another role that I have, I don't get paid for it, is I'm currently president of CEDAS. That's the Connecticut Economic Development Association. So it's the professional association for economic developers in the state of Connecticut. At the chamber, we've just really started to ramp up our economic development efforts. So we recently launched a business visitation program that supports business retention and expansion.
That sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other things that we do in the area of economic development, but how do we grow this region?
Excellent. So you said there's 15 towns represented by your chamber. What role did towns and cities play in the chamber? Like, do mayors and first selectmen partner with you? Do you guide policy? What's that relationship like?
It takes many different forms, and I would say it varies by each community. And we try to work with each community, realizing that not one Connecticut town city are the same. Yeah,
one size does not fit all.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And they each have different ways that they interact with their business community, with their local chamber, with the Greater New Haven Chamber. We try to find ways that partnership makes sense. So the program I just mentioned, our business outreach program, is a great example. Before we go do visits with any of the businesses in these communities, we're meeting with the town, the city where they're located in, and actually trying to form a long-term partnership. It makes a big difference if we go visit a company and we're coming as the chamber that's representing the overall business community, but then also let's say we have the local economic developer who works for the town or city with us, so we can address first off a lot of those maybe municipal issues that might be out there with that business. But also in doing that, we're finding that that draws all of our communities into the sense of that we are a region
Hmm.
and working together. I think one of the challenges that we have as a region is to tell our entire story
Yeah.
because it really is compelling, especially for this region.
Hmm.
We have great stories in each individual community from an economic development standpoint, but when you add them all together, it's extremely compelling, and I think makes a great business case for businesses to be located here and continue to expand
Well, we
here.
like that.
Yes.
I mean, we want everyone to do well in Connecticut. Um, Talking about local leaders, as of last night, New Haven has a new mayor-elect. Do you think that changes the equation for you from a business perspective, having new leadership in New Haven? Like, what's your relationship going forward? What are you looking forward
It
to?
all comes down to relationships,
Yeah.
and so I know Justin. I congratulate him on the electoral win. We look forward to working with him. We had a great working relationship with Mayor Harp. She's done a lot of great
Mhm.
things for the city. So sad to see her go, but also excited about the potential of working with
Yeah.
Justin. And I know he's interested in working with the business community
Yeah.
to make New Haven strong. But
Any kind of particular New Haven issues you think would be good to work on?
well, I gotta get him 100% behind Tweed. I think he's there. He has some things that he'd like to make sure that are addressed in any plan for Tweed. But for the city itself, just the city as a organization, a lot of funding goes to Tweed, and so it's very important that Tweed is successful.
Yeah.
For the city's own finances. Justin's supportive. He has some questions he wants to make sure that are covered in any plan that we have for Tweed. So we want to work together with him on that. Just general business issues, making it a conducive place for business. New Haven already is, but how do we continue to support that growth while also balancing local resident neighborhood concerns as we do it? So funny story about Justin. He and I went to democracy school for the city of New Haven.
Democracy school.
Probably 10 years ago. It's a great program that the city puts on. Really teaches you about how municipalities work, in this case, New Haven, all the different parts of the government, and how you can get involved in those committees and activities. So it's funny that we've
got a chamber president and we got a new mayor, both out of this
out of this
program.
one year of the class.
It's an incubator for the leaders of tomorrow. Maybe.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
So we said your base is in New Haven. It's the cultural center of the state. There's been a lot of development going on in the city, but much of what has been going on has been hotels and apartment buildings aimed at employees and guests of Yale. How is New Haven looking economically as far as business concerned? Is it growing at the same pace as the amount of housing has?
I think so. There's a lot of housing. We probably don't know yet because there's a lot of housing that's on the books that's in the planning stages. Shovels have already gone in the ground, so there's a lot of development projects that are out there that will be coming online. I know that a lot of these developers are really bullish on New Haven, and they run the numbers, and they feel confident that they can continue to build these apartments at a fast rate, and that the growth is going to be there, and the demand is going to be there to match that. So we're excited about that. That they're putting their money on the line. That tells us a lot about what's happening in New Haven. It is still on us, though, to continue to make that promise be fulfilled as far as that growth, that we continue to see job growth that goes beyond just Yale and the hospital, who are two of our great engines and really drive this local economy. But what we need to do now is leverage that growth and use it to see the rest of the private sector develop. And we are seeing that. I mean, we're seeing that the biotech innovative companies that are coming out of Yale have a relationship with the hospital, seem to be happening a lot faster. There's more businesses being created on a regular basis, it appears. And so you start to build this real sense of having a life sciences sector and community here, a lot of tech companies in New Haven. We still have a lot of manufacturing. I'd be remiss if I didn't say distribution, which I think is an extremely big opportunity for not just New Haven, but really the region. When you look at the Amazon facility that just opened up in
It's
September.
kind of being at the crux of 91, 95, the shore, the port, all that kind of stuff coming together.
It's true. Amazon opened their facility up in North Haven. I believe it's the size of 3 football fields. I've been in it. It's huge. It's gigantic. It's up right in time for the holiday season.
'Cause that's up and running now.
It's up and running. Yep. They actually started their regular everyday operations in September. And what's neat about it too is Amazon obviously is a technology company
Hmm.
first and foremost, and they'll tell you that this is their most technologically advanced plant anywhere in the
Hmm.
world because it's their
This is the new one. Yeah.
most recent, and the amount of robotics that they have in there, but still with a huge staffing
Hmm.
component. Uh,
How many are working over there?
I believe 1,500 was
Wow.
the
Okay,
number
that's
number that I heard.
not
Multiple
insignificant. Yeah.
shifts, but they really meld the robotics working with people.
Hmm.
There's the term cobots of how that they're able
Yeah.
to be extremely efficient, but also have the added intelligence.
Yeah, I mean,
piece.
the robots sound scary sometimes to people, the robot overlords are coming, but I've actually worked in a factory almost 20 years ago now where there was already robots working in the warehouse, picking piles off of in the big warehouse, bringing it out, because then people would deal with it from there. But dangerous jobs, repetitive jobs, we use them,
Yeah.
and there's still plenty of people working. Um, so we're talking about technology and private sector kind of stuff. What do you think about the situations like Lexion, where at one point they were going to be leaving New Haven, and then they changed their minds, decided to stay and perhaps even grow here? Is their decision to stay a testament to New Haven, or just a new direction for that specific company?
I think it's both. Alexion made a huge investment in New
Mhm.
Haven. They've continued to live up to that investment. They at one point had larger plans of how that
Mhm.
was going to grow out. Any state incentives that they took in for that, they actually paid back to the state. That's
Okay.
if you look across, even in the entire country, that's pretty rare where a company
Mhm.
actually gives money back to the state. But their individual plans changed for a period of
Mhm.
time. Their growth plans, the market changes. They made that adjustment, but they never abandoned New Haven. In fact, as you mentioned, they've only continued to grow. So
Yeah.
they had a base of about 400 jobs here. That's now expanding, I
Mhm.
believe. You double check on the numbers, but they should be getting up around 500 positions. And they only see New Haven as a growth opportunity. They have
Mhm.
an incredible facility that's here, state of the art building. You won't find anything else like it, or you can't supersede it anywhere
Yeah.
else in the world. So they've made a huge investment in New Haven. I talk to them regularly, and they just see the positives in New Haven. So they're very bullish on this region and continuing to grow here. And as the prospects of the company itself continue to move in an upward trend, I'm confident that they'll make those investments here.
Excellent. So we just talked about some new technological kind of stuff, but New Haven is an area where its age can in some ways be an asset because its original 9 squares and setup was set up as a walkable living city. And that seems to be a trend now with cities like New York, Denver, San Francisco, talking ideas about shutting areas of the city down to car traffic to make it pedestrian only. What do you think about the idea of changing the makeup of downtown, perhaps shutting down Chapel Street?
I have no opinion on
None.
street closures.
Yeah.
I've not even thought about it. I'm sure there, anytime you would enter into that
Mm-hmm.
type of discussion, there would be a lot of different factors to take into consideration. Obviously, a lot of businesses depend on mobility and that people
Mm-hmm.
can get through. So I actually haven't even heard of that concept of it. But
Yeah.
to your question, New Haven is extremely walkable, one of the most walkable, if not the most walkable city in all of Connecticut. We're so blessed by the universities that we have, and
Yeah.
it's not just Yale. Yale's a huge part of it, but also having Gateway Community College, Albertus
Yep.
Magnus, University of New Haven, Quinnipiac University,
Yep.
University. I think did I
Southern.
Southern Connect? Oh boy,
Good old Southern.
don't forget Southern, because Southern does such a good job and so actually interwoven into the community overall, and how they're able to take so many even first time for college students from New Haven itself, and allow them to move on with a college degree. So Southern's a huge part of it as well. So it's that conglomeration of all of these higher education institutions that we have in such close proximity to the downtown that gives us a life in New Haven, kind of a heartbeat of the city that continues beyond 5 p.m. when the businesses close and let out.
Yeah.
In fact, if anything, New Haven becomes more vibrant at that time.
Which I think is important, not just to the bars, the clubs, the restaurants, but to the businesses that want to attract younger kind of workers to the area coming. We talk about brain drain and things like that, where people graduate college and move to New York or move to Boston, but retaining and getting the talent to come here the walkability and the nightlife is I think a big part of that.
Right. I mean, even if you look across the country, the unemployment rate is relatively low right now. So there's a talent crunch for everyone, and everyone is trying to attract talent.
Yeah.
And the talent really is a differentiator these days, especially in a knowledge economy, that, those who have the best, the most, the brightest talent are going to be the most successful. And we're definitely in the middle of that competition here, having the assets, like you mentioned, here in downtown New Haven. Also having an entire region where you can go from the shoreline and get into an urban setting very quickly, go up into the hills in the northern part of our region. That all plays into it, makes it a more attractive place for businesses to be here, whether they're right in the center of downtown, if they're in the suburbs, if they're in the suburbs of New Haven itself. It adds to the overall attractiveness. And that is one of the key features that a lot of young people are looking for.
Yeah. And like transit-oriented development has been a big buzzword as of late. The new train stations coming in. I think West Haven recently put in a new one, and just kind of development around the train stations, sort of thing, is very interesting.
Yeah, and we've had, to your point again of being an older city, we've had transit-oriented development for a long time.
Yeah,
we've had Metro North for a long time, and it is a key part to this city, to many of the towns and cities in this region.
I mean, unless I'm wrong, I think it's one of the busiest train stations in the country, I think.
Yeah, it gives you great access directly to New York. Now, that said, we highly encourage, and I know Governor Lamont and the state are looking at this. How can we make those trains faster? How can we increase those connection times between New York and New Haven so that it makes it a really seamless trip to be able to get in the city? We talk about location. I know I'm going off your question here, but location is one of our great assets. So, but if you're gonna have a location as one of your great assets, you need to be able to get in and out very quickly. So that goes to the rail, goes to the
being halfway between New York and Boston doesn't make a difference if you can't get in and out easily.
Exactly. And so you're able to do that now, but the more that we can build upon that strength, the better off that will be.
All right. Let me remind everyone that you are listening to WNHH 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live on Facebook Live. Just go to facebook.com/NewHavenIndependent or check out CCM's Facebook page. All right. So we just talked about some bigger kind of state project. You mentioned the governor. Some other big projects that are going on around here. The Long Wharf redevelopment and the Haven, with most of New Haven and West Haven is fully developed at this point. What do you think about the opportunities like these along the coast to spur business growth?
I think any of these projects where we're doing different types of redevelopment, first it speaks to that if people want to make that investment, that they really believe in New Haven, they believe in this region.
Putting their money where their mouth is.
That's a real positive. It goes to what we were just talking about with talent, that if you have attractive, desirable places, that also is really important in how we continue to attract talent, brings energy to the city, and makes it a more attractive place to businesses overall. Any one of these projects, there's different community interests that you want to make sure that we take account for. We don't want it to be just gentrification. We're looking for really inclusive growth in how we move forward. So I think those always have to be part of the conversation, especially when you're doing redevelopment. Both of those projects, though, I think have great opportunities for both cities and the region overall, is that they continue to be beacons of the potential possibilities, the investments that people want to make here.
Great. So we talked earlier, you're the Greater New Haven Chamber, but there's the greater part of that. So you don't just represent New Haven, but the surrounding towns. You serve the entire area. What kind of economic growth are the towns around New Haven seeing?
Well, I think it does make sense to talk about it all as a region. A lot of our communities are doing well. Connecticut obviously has some unique qualities in how we are broken up into 169 municipalities. I think a rising tide rises all boats. I mean, if we do well as a region, each one of those communities is going to do well. And if we're thinking regionally, we're thinking about growth for the entire region, then obviously we're in a property tax system, so that's very key. The grand list still matters a lot, but if a new business brings in several hundred jobs, locates in a different town,
Hmm.
that means that those are going to be residents that are going to be moving into all of the communities
Yeah.
in the region, spending money in all of our communities, increasing tax revenue in all those communities.
Stuff
So
doesn't just stop at the border of a town. Yeah.
exactly. And this goes back to what I was saying before. I mean, it really makes a much more compelling case when you talk about us as a region. The individual towns that we have
Hmm.
and communities, in many ways, add to the character of our state and bring government
Hmm.
to its most local level. And that's fine, but we also need to think about it in the overall big picture. But so to answer your question, I wouldn't highlight one versus the other. I think all of our we'll just say in general, cities have some challenges
Hmm.
with historical benefits, employee contracts,
Pensions and
pensions. So that impacts different communities at different points in time,
Hmm.
and how they're able to deal with those issues. And frankly, it's something that even a town or a city needs to be looking at, because we're definitely not through that storm statewide overall for the next several years, and just even as a state in how we deal with those pension liabilities.
Hmm.
But as far as a development standpoint, and each of our communities,
There's something
doing
going
well.
on everywhere.
Mhm.
Something good to talk about. On the flip side, where we're looking at some problems, some news articles in the last few months about grocery stores like Trader Joe's balking at putting down roots in the area. Surprisingly, even North Haven, which seemed pretty ripe for a Trader Joe's as anywhere else. What do you think is the cause of this? Some put up the minimum wage, but stores like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods and Aldi already have a minimum wage that's higher than our state minimum wage. So what do you think is going on with that?
I haven't spent any time looking at Trader Joe's issue.
Just
They obviously
grocery stores in general, I guess.
they have locations in Connecticut, and
Yeah.
even how the grocery store business is changing
Yeah.
a lot. So I wouldn't want to put too much weight or emphasis on that. This is a growing area. We do have growth that has
Mhm.
been consistent here, and the outlook is very strong when you look at the different types of companies, new companies that are moving in to this region, and really that are being spurred
Mhm.
by innovation that occurs, as I mentioned, at all of our universities. I think that if, just in general, if we continue to make conscious effort to grow our company base, the real employer base of companies, so that could be
Yeah.
tech, that could be life sciences, could be manufacturing, other types of office uses that are in there, Amazon distribution center, then the retail service side of it will continue to grow. If we have an extremely strong base of companies with high paying jobs,
Yeah.
then Trader Joe's is going to be
We'll
jumping at the
show up, yeah.
opportunity to want to be there. I don't I don't want to get it. I have no idea what their decision making process of.
I mean, you feel like it may
of
have a
when
lot
it
more to
is.
do with what's going on in their industry than what's going on
I
here.
would think. I would think.
It's
I mean,
an
we
easy
have
excuse to say, oh, it's the taxes or it's the minimum wage, but
yeah,
probably,
and
yeah.
I don't want to minimize those issues.
Yeah.
We definitely, when you talk about things about minimum wage, paid family medical leave, really needs to be strong consideration from the legislature about
Mhm.
how passing bills like that impact the businesses.
Yeah.
We want all of our workers to have good wages, to be able to take care of themselves and their family. But if you make these decisions in isolation,
Mhm.
you do run the risk that that's going to hurt certain businesses, and they may not be able to sustain themselves
in ways that you might not have foreseen.
right. And then instead of actually helping employment, you lose employment
Mhm.
at times. So definitely, since the minimum wage has passed, heard from a lot of businesses
Mhm.
that is a major concern because it's not something that just stays flat.
Yeah.
It's a continuing. There's a riser that's built into it,
Mhm.
and many of them already pay their employees above minimum wage.
Okay.
But as you start to increase your lowest paid employees, or maybe just in the market, you raise up
The whole
all of the wages. And
yeah.
it's not that they don't want to pay their talent. Talent, as I mentioned, is key. It's critical for these companies to be successful. But when you're competing nationally, globally,
Mhm.
and your costs are much higher than your competitors
Yeah.
or even your sister companies within a multinational organization, then you're starting to put yourself in a very difficult spot.
Yeah. Moving further outwards, New Haven is not alone. It's the subject of many of the same things that Bridgeport or Hartford is. Do you work with the other chambers on policy or on projects? Do you guys coordinate on stuff?
Yeah, we speak regularly with the other chambers. We're not alone. I speak with our local chambers of commerce, and on a regional basis, I mentioned the 8 largest metro chambers. We get together regularly to discuss policy issues. There's also a statewide chamber association that's managed through CBIA. It has to be collaborative. Everything that we do, it has to be collaborative. It's not a competition of business organizations. We really all need to work together to be as efficient as possible, because there's a lot of challenges out there. As much as I've talked about how many great things going on in New Haven, we want to keep that momentum going. And so to be able to address that, we can't be a splintered business community. Need to be working towards the same goals.
So it's not a competition. So when you see a project like we recently had Erin Stewart from New Britain on, and she was talking about the big data center project they have up there. When you see a project like that, do you go, I wish we'd gotten that, or?
No, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say I don't want every project for the New Haven region. I do, but this New Haven region cannot survive if the state itself is not strong. And so in economic development, we work through projects this way. We start, especially if it's a company that's already here, you start first by saying, let's say they need to expand, move to a different building. You want to keep them in the community that they're already in. If that's impossible, if that just cannot be done, then you look to the region. And then if that can't be done, then you look to the state. We don't want to lose them to out of state. We all are better off when companies choose to be in Connecticut, no matter what town it is, compared to choosing to be in another state. So we're supportive of the wins that occur all across the state, whether they're in Hartford, New Britain, down Fairfield County, or anywhere in the state.
So it might not be as direct, but success in Connecticut is success for us on some level.
And this is a small state. We need to constantly remind ourselves that Connecticut could be a region in other parts of the country, could actually be just a metro.
Yeah, it's certainly possible that people who live in the New Haven, your area, are working at the New Britain Data Center or in Bridgeport, in Stamford, all over the place.
Definitely. So we need to operate with that mindset. Now we have even within our region, if you could call it Connecticut that, we have very distinct areas, different feels from different parts of the state, but that doesn't mean that it all doesn't work together to grow the overall economy. And that helps. It helps if as we say, we're a manufacturing base. It helps that we have Electric Boat that's adding jobs over in Groton and London.
So what do you think about the state of the state? Is it getting more conducive to business in Connecticut?
I think we're on a good pathway, and we need to keep moving that direction. Governor has spoken a lot about having a business mindset, and I know he definitely brings that into state government.
Yeah, he has a background in business. So,
and when we enter a legislative session, I try to look. Have we done something that is raising the cost of doing business? Definitely, last session there were things that were passed. We talked about minimum wage, this new paid family medical leave. Those are things that raise the cost of doing business. There's different arguments within each. We already talked about minimum wage and the impacts negative impacts that can have on our business. So we need to be very careful when we're passing legislation about how that's impacting business. Definitely, there is a strong mantra right now for growth that comes from the governor, also comes from the legislature. Need to be very careful with the policy that goes in place, because we want to support businesses across the board, the small businesses, the large businesses as well.
You mentioned pensions and minimum wage. Are there any other kind of issues that are likely to come up in the legislative session that you're watching closely, that as a group you're very concerned with?
For this session, definitely the transportation plan. I know that's out there. We're excited about it in the sense, if it does make the investments in Tweed that we've been asking for. We think the proximity of having the airport this close to downtown New Haven, and the types of businesses that we have here, and that you could get on a plane in just a few minutes from downtown New Haven, makes a big difference. Makes a big difference for the university, for the hospital system, but so many of our small tech businesses. Really, it can be a manufacturing business. In this economy where people communicate through technology a lot more, when you really do have to be somewhere and be somewhere in person, you need to be able to get there.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to get in, but also be able to get out. It makes it a lot more desirable. Here, a great example I heard from one of our manufacturers. They have customers around the world. They want their customers to come visit their plant, talk with them, understand their process, see the product. If it's difficult to get into New Haven, then the customer's rep just may decide, this month when I'm doing my travels, I'm not going to go to New Haven. It's just going to be too much of a hassle.
If they have to fly into New York or Hartford and then take a long drive to get here,
that starts happening over a lot of time. Then then maybe you lose that relationship and eventually you lose that customer. That's a trickle down, but that's the type of impacts, positive and negative, if we have an investment in that airport as southern tier airport for the state here at Tweed. That would make a big difference. And frankly, too, Tweed is in the best position of the airports in the state to be able to take that investment, pave runway, have a long runway that supports
it seems like an
planes,
obvious
more
choice.
flights. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's not to say there's not challenges and need to work with neighborhoods and communities, but how do we have access there without disturbing local population? But you asked about issues for the legislative session. I mean, it's clear to me that the transportation package will be part of that, and making sure that Tweed is really recognized within that transportation package is key for us.
Tweed obviously is going to involve New Haven, but also East Haven, which also I believe has a new mayor. Have you reached out to them yet? Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, looking forward to having conversations. A lot's happened with Tweed in the last just even 6 months. We had a appeals court decision that essentially knocked down the state statute that was limiting the runway length of Tweed. The state has the opportunity, Attorney General Tong, to appeal that decision, negative towards New Haven and Tweed, but he does have the opportunity to appeal that decision to the U.S. Supreme Court. I think it's likely that he probably will. I wish he would not, but
why do you think he's on the other side of that?
As I've heard him describe it, there's other state laws in play, the rights of a subsidiary of municipality to be able to have standing in court, issues like that. I think that's what he's leaning on. For us, it just delays what we see as the inevitable, and it delays economic growth in New Haven. So, hopefully, even if he does appeal, that's a short time for us to hear back that, and I would hope that the Supreme Court would not hear that case. We don't want this tied up in any more litigation. We want to move forward. We want to, we've brought the business community and said this is important to us. We send that message time and time again. We want economic growth, and I know that whether it's the Attorney General or the governor, they see New Haven as key to growth for the entire state, and so we want to get moving forward on that.
Now, talking about growth, the flip side of that, everyone's right now is a little concerned. You hear in the news about recession, signs of recession coming. With Fed lowering interest rates and stuff, where do you see New Haven and Connecticut in 5 years, in 10 years? Do you see the growth continuing there, or are you concerned about the recession? What are your thoughts there?
You're always concerned about the recession. I know statistically we're overdue. It seems that there's different indicators nationally, globally, that peaking at that issue. We're not seeing it locally right now. Our business community, in the conversations I have with them, are doing very well. They seem to be making investments in equipment, hiring here in Connecticut. So from everything that we're seeing on the ground, things are going ahead full speed. It's always going to be out there. Is there a recession going to occur? When's it going to occur? What's the impact that we will feel locally? I think if we continue to make Connecticut a competitive place, even if a recession occurs, you can survive that, and then you can continue on your growth trajectory. So it's continuing to make this a competitive environment for business.
To make them better able to survive the next recession. Great. So final
Answer
question.
one last thing on that.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as where I see New Haven, I mean, I think we can. There's a lot of density here. We can expand upon that. This can become the city, but also this region much more of a powerhouse. A lot of great things. I never want to sound negative because a lot of great things are occurring in New Haven and this region every day. I think we're just scratching the potential, scratching the surface. I mean, there's a lot more opportunity and potential that we have here, and we can really.
We've got all the ingredients. If we play our cards right, we should be able to make that happen.
Universities, talent, great local education systems, statewide that feeds into that workforce, research universities, great mix of companies that are well known, but also a lot of entrepreneurism that's occurring. It is all the ingredients for a lot of success.
Well, that's great. So I got one last question for you, and I think I might know the answer to this one, but I'll ask anyway. If you had to choose one thing, what would be the biggest help to promote economic growth in Greater New Haven?
So you heard me talk about the airport all day. So
you do like the airport.
The airport, we're big on the airport. Transportation's key. It's key for everything. It starts with us for the airport because we've been lobbying on that for a long time, and we really do believe that gets people in and out, raises New Haven's prominence even on a national standpoint. If you have additional flights in and out, but I'll stay on the transportation theme. If we can speed up the rail between here and New York, that's every minute you shave off of that ride. That's a positive for what we have going on here, and that the state creates an environment where business can succeed. State can get out of the way, and businesses can make the investments that they need to make. And that's not just on a legislative standpoint, but also even on the regulatory and how we treat business, and that we really celebrate success of business. We want to celebrate that businesses are here in Connecticut, that they're here in this region, that they're growing, and when they make decisions to continue to make investments here.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank our guest, Garrett Sheehan. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws is on the boards. And I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like. And watch out for CCM Chat Series on our YouTube page. Just search for CCM Chats and you'll find them all in one convenient playlist. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.